Hello, friends, and welcome to Rise Up in Real Estate, where we are on a quest. We are looking for the extra in the ordinary. And I'm Tad Fulford, and I will be your host on this journey where we will take an honest look at what makes ordinary people extraordinary. Exactly how can we be extra in our personal and our professional lives? In this season of the Rise Up in Real Estate adventure, there will be a monthly rhythm, meaning each month we will have 4 unique episodes. In one episode, we'll tackle a pressing current real estate industry thought. In another, we will chat with a local difference maker in the real estate space. For our 3rd episode, we will host a respected national thought leader. And finally, we will have a 4th bonus and surprise episode. And in each episode, we will be digging into not only what those people think, but who those people are. Along the way, it's my hope that you'll laugh some, you'll be challenged some, you will get inspired some, and if we are lucky, maybe even figure out a way or two you can rise up in your own life and be the best human that you can be. So the challenge is, let's all rise up. Welcome back, Rise Up Nation. We're excited to have you here on the show, Rise Up in Real Estate. And today we're going to take a little bit of a break from the real estate world, although I think all topics relate to your profession. And we're going to interview a guy who's got just one of the most remarkable stories genuinely that I've ever heard. I met Chad Porter a couple of years ago. He came and spoke to our organization, and I remember it like it was yesterday. The things that he shared, his experiences, the way that it related to the choices that you make in life, and the way that you bounce back and live your life was remarkable. So, Chad, I'm just honored. I really am. I'm honored to have you on the show. You're a great human being, and I can't wait to share you with my guests.
Man, thank you so much for remembering me. Yeah, and for good reasons as well. So I'm really excited to be here and just share a little bit with your audience, and hopefully there'll be some nuggets they can walk away with, when we're done.
Yeah, so let's start out by doing this part, because I need to let people know that you're human to start with, because once they hear your story, they're going to be like, this guy's not normal. And I think that's probably true.
Some would still say I'm not normal after they know me.
Yeah, where do you live now? Where are you from? Tell me about your family just a little bit. Give me a bio for us.
Yeah. So I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I grew up in Lumberton, North Carolina with my parents and sister, and 2 great, amazing, influences in my life. My mother taught special needs kids for 30 years, and my dad was a 3-lettered athlete in college and a coach, and just a great mentor for me. And live here now. I have 2 boys, a junior and a freshman in high school. So right now with sports and chasing them around and Ubering one of them, at least the other one can drive. But it's been a blast, man. I'm loving life and loving life on the coast. So it's been awesome.
And you, did you go to college anywhere that I might know?
I did. Yeah, I went to UNC Wilmington. That's what brought me to Wilmington from Lumberton. And so I've been here really ever since. I went to graduate school at East Carolina University and got my master's in physical therapy. So that was my route. That was going to be my life. And, life changed and different plans came around. And so I'm just super blessed to be able to do what I do today.
Yeah. And so today, your day-to-day, other than being a Uber dad, as you say, and is that a real thing? You Uber your kid? Like,
yes,
they get on Uber. You cannot be all the places they need to be. Is that right?
It is unbelievable. I mean, I've got one that's playing soccer and football at the same season. And so we're at football practice in the morning, and then we're back at soccer practice. And after soccer practice, we go back to football practice, and he's got, 3 games a week. So it's pretty wide open right now. So I'm always there whenever I'm not on the road traveling and speaking. I'm watching their practices, being there with them, helping them homework, whatever it calls for. So it's very blessed to be able to have that time with them.
Yeah, you probably don't even know this, but we've been on the show like 3 minutes, and you said blessed several times. So I love that about you. And I follow you on social media. I've read your book. I've listened to your story. I found you on YouTube. I've done all the homework I can do. Tell me, you're a professional speaker because of your story that we'll get into in a minute. Tell me about how many times you're going to speak this year, and tell me what it's like. It's not just once a month, right?
No, it's not. Thank God, because I would certainly be doing something else. And by the way, I was in real estate for quite a while. I was in real estate for quite a few years, and so I certainly have a heart for what your industry is like. And I never did the general real estate market. I was in a private development, selling squares of land, and it was awesome. It was a great experience. But I'm glad you guys do what you do, and I'm thankful for you for what you do. But yeah, so I started this speaking business after 3 other careers. I was a physical therapist, then I went into real estate for a while. 2008 came around, and it wasn't really the market that pushed me out as much as the developer I worked with just stopped doing some of the things that they were supposed to do. And so kind of got out of that, went into financial planning for a while. And I look back and say, God, if I would have just started speaking right out of high school or right out of college, this thing but I think all of those experiences and all of the being in healthcare, being in sales, being in real estate, being in financial industry, it really helps me to understand what people do in different worlds, because the groups that I speak in front of are so diverse, from the bluest of the blue collar to the whitest of the white, to professional football teams, to mom and pop sales groups, real estate all the time. I do appreciate the real estate groups because they do have a heart for educating themselves. Hopefully they do. Some obviously think they know everything and don't need to keep growing, but what you're doing today and the things you do on your podcast, it just shows that there's a lot of education out there to be done. So I do a lot of speaking in those type of groups as well. But yeah, I probably do in between, on an average year, 45 to 60 events a year. Some days I'm going for some weeks I'm going for a full week. Some days it's just a day here and there, but it's just been an incredible life to be able to. I feel guilty, to be honest with you. I make a living just talking about me and helping people, and it doesn't even feel like I work. And sometimes I feel guilty for it, but if the message is needed and somebody can grow from it, then it's needed. So.
Yeah, I love that, and we're going to get into your story for a few minutes if you're open to that. I do want to say that when you're the concept, so we have a quarterly sales meeting at our company, and I take the content of it very seriously, because only 4 times a year we have everybody together, and so whoever we put on the agenda, I look very seriously at that. And I remember when Harmony Bellamy called me about you, and she said, "Look into this guy," and I'm like, "What can a small town Wilmington guy bring to us that we hadn't already heard before?" And when I started looking into you, I couldn't get you here fast enough. Like I just thought, for somebody to be on a speaking circuit, because I love public speaking too, but if you haven't written a book or you haven't had a major experience, sure, you don't have the respect of the audience. I did a lot of stand-up comedy, and I was trying to convince the audience all the time to like me. Your story immediately gave me an affinity with you. I was like, man, I mean, superhuman things that you have overcome. And so I couldn't get you here quick enough. And I'll never forget somebody telling me, I don't remember who it was, but they said that somebody had been through something similar to you. And you went on social media and you said, "Hey, if I need to talk to this person, I'll talk to them." And we connected you, and you picked up the phone and you called. So here you are, speaking 60 times a year, making a nice living, talking about yourself, which is weird for you because you feel guilty, but you also pick up the phone and help whoever needs it. And I appreciated that. So take me back to the story. Let's talk. Not everybody knows your story, Chad, and I want to highlight your book and all that too, but tell me what your experience, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So when I was growing up as a kid, water sports were huge for me. We would pack up everything we had during the summers and move to a little White Lake, North Carolina, and we would spend all summer there and just enjoy life. And so I started water skiing when I was 4 years old, joined a professional water ski team that would do these ski shows all over the lakes around North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina. We would take our whole team, boats, ramps, everything, and do like Cypress Gardens type of shows. If you haven't seen Cypress Gardens, maybe Jaws 3 before, they chase around the pyramid and everything. But same kind of acts. And we were doing an act at Tucker Lake, which is on the corner of I-40 and 95 here in North Carolina. And literally, as the show was ending up, we would just finished our pyramid. We were riding back in the boat. Boat turned around. We jumped out of the back of the boat. Two dads were in the boat, cleaning up the boat, getting everything going. There was a huge storm that was coming in, barreling in. There was white caps. We could see the lightning flashing, and it was just a little chaotic. And somehow, some way, the driver accidentally hit the throttle and completely in reverse, and the boat takes off backwards right towards 9 kids between 8 and 18 years of age. And luckily, I was the only one directly behind the boat, never saw it coming. I dove underwater thinking whatever was going on, I would be safe, and went right over top of me. The propeller was spinning with 400 horsepower pushing it, and nobody could slow it down because the two dads were pinned to the floorboard. And so I got caught up in the prop, and it chopped me up pretty well. I couldn't get away from it until finally the boat ran into another boat where they could stop it, pulled me out from underneath it, and my right leg was broken in about 5 places, just completely chewed up, arteries severed, nerves severed, muscles shredded, everything. And then the left foot was completely taken off, lost in the lake. Nobody could find it. And it was one of those moments that is surreal for sure. The pain obviously trumping almost everything, but the thoughts of, this can't be real. This cannot really be happening to me. This has got to be a nightmare. This has got to be something I'm going to wake up from very soon. But it wasn't. It was real life, and it was on us pretty quickly. And so anyway, they tried to stop the bleeding, and they got me to the first hospital. It was total chaos. They called Duke University, sent a helicopter to come and grab me. They came in, and so I talked about the book. I wrote the book about 3 or 4 years ago and went to national bestseller in just a few days after being released, which was crazy from a kid from rural North Carolina who could barely read to write a book that someone enjoyed. But it was a big hit. My mother sent copies to a lot of people in my life, and she sent a copy to the life flight nurse that was on the helicopter that day. And she called me a couple of days later, said it was just amazing. Everything she remembered, just spot on. She said, but there's a few things you left out in the book that I wanted you to know. And I was like, gosh, I wish I'd have called, but tell me what. And she said, when we were called to come to pick you up at the lake that day. We weren't supposed to come to the hospital, come directly to the lake and pick you up. It was that bad of a situation, but we couldn't land because the storms were so bad. And Duke called us and said, bring the helicopter back. We don't have time. It's too dangerous. Do not sit around there and wait. Just come back. And so they did not follow directions. And she said, you're very lucky that we kind of listened to our instincts a little bit and said, you know what, let's hang out for a minute or two. Let's just see what happens. So finally, storm cleared enough. They found the hospital I went to, pulled in there. She told me on the phone, she said, had we not stayed around, you wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And you would have never written a book because you wouldn't have lived. She said, because when I got into the emergency room to come and grab you, to take you to the helicopter, I wanted to look at your vital signs. And she said, I've been in trauma nursing for 30 years. I've seen it all. I've never seen anybody with your vital signs that ever lived. Not one person. It was that bad. You lost so much blood, the infections running through your body. You were literally a dead 15-year-old kid laying on that table. There was nothing that we were going to do. And there was a weird pause. And I sat there and I said, well, dang, I'm glad you didn't stop working on me. She says, well, we don't actually stop until you finally die, but we were sure you were going to. There was no question about that. So, but it worked. They got me on the helicopter. They took me to Duke. It was total chaos. There's tons of just hilarious moments that you would never think in a situation like this that you'd ever find hilarious. But there are some moments that are just unbelievable. They couldn't get me on the helicopter to start with. And this nurse tells me how she's going to strap me to the stretcher and flip me upside down, and how I wasn't going to fall off the stretcher, but it's going to be really scary because I was going to be looking at the concrete and the chopper blades are flying above my head. And she said that I told her that day, and I didn't remember till I met her a year later. She said, do you know what you said to me when I told you I was going to turn you upside down in the stretcher underneath the helicopter? She said, you looked right at me and said, don't worry if you fall. I said to her, if I fall off the stretcher, I won't run away. And she just immediately knew that as much as I think this kid's not going to make it, he's going to. Just somehow the stupid joke was just enough to let her say this kid's going to make it somehow. And luckily I did. Lots of surgeries at Duke, lots of touch and go for the first week or so, but we made it, man. They never found the foot. The right leg they did put back together again, didn't really give it much of a chance, but they did, and pretty much works like it needs to. And but yeah, it was a long summer, just to say the least.
And when that happened, you were 15. And do you remember what day that was? What's the anniversary day?
June 23rd, 1991.
Okay.
So don't
So,
do the math. Please don't do the math.
well, I was getting ready to ask you how old you are today. I know I'm pretty close to knowing because that's
I
about
think 47, I believe. I stopped counting a little bit, but I think
yeah.
that's where I land today. But yeah, it was I mean, before that, you have to understand that I had my whole life planned out. I mean, everything I was going to do in life, I knew exactly what it was going to go. I'd already been on recruiting lists for college football. Even as a freshman in high school, I was MVP of the basketball team, football team. I scored every touchdown we scored that entire season for the football team. We were the worst football team in the state of North Carolina, but things were going well for me, and so I was on my way. I mean, there was nothing that was going to stop me. And even when this happened initially, I never saw the left leg that was gone. I saw the right one. I thought in my head, literally, this is going to be okay. I mean, people come back from injuries. I've had surgeries. I've had broken bones. This is going to be okay. And then obviously the news came that they couldn't find the foot anywhere. And that was the first realization that this is not what I thought it was. And so certainly things are easier to control when you've been through them, or you can rationalize them, or you have seen someone else get through something before. But there are going to be challenges regardless in your life at some point in time that you're not going to have a basis for. You're not going to have a clue how you're going to make it or how you're going to get through it. But it's in those moments is what do you do then? Where does your hope lie? Where does your inspiration lie? Where do you get faith from? Where do you get those things? And how do you pull through when you don't think it's possible? And there's a lot to go with that for sure. A lot to do with that.
And so I think I remember you telling us like how long were you in the hospital? You didn't start school that year, right? Normal. Did you start back?
Well, it was June 23rd. So it was right the first ski show of the summer. And I was in school the very first day of school.
In August.
I was in the first hospital in Major Duke for about 4 weeks. And then they sent me home for a couple of weeks, non-weight bearing. I had pins coming out of the leg, holding it together, a big, it was a lot going on. And then I went back to rehab for about a week and a half to learn how to walk again with a brand new leg. I had a full leg cast all the way up to my hip on the good leg, just trying to haul it around. And so I think that's why I got so good on the prosthetic, just because it was my good leg for a long time, trying to haul the one that was still intact around. And, but yeah, I mean, I was determined. I laid in the bed one night and literally, I lost it. I had been strong for everyone the entire time in the hospital, but I lost it one night. There was nobody staying with me that one night. And I finally cried. And, I asked why 1,000 times that night. And as clearly as I'm speaking to you, I heard, "Don't worry, you'll find out." And amongst all the tears and amongst everything that was happening, I just stopped crying. And I just thought, what next? What do I do now? And I was just never raised to quit, but that was certainly an option of mine, just to feel sorry for myself, roll over, crawl in a ball, and not do anything. And no one would have blamed me. But it just wasn't my nature and not what I've been taught. My dad's always taught me, get your butt up, throw dirt on it, let's walk it off, let's just keep going, no matter what happened. And it sounds like a redneck way of motivating somebody, but is there a better lesson in life than let's get past what we just went through? It's over. There's nothing we can do about it. We learn from it and we move forward. And that's all that we can do. We can just keep moving forward. And when we do that, it should be surprised what happens and what comes our way for sure. But
I remember when you came to speak to our group, and I knew your story beforehand, but we didn't advertise your story.
Sure.
We wanted it to kind of be organic. And I'm sitting there listening to you talk, and I don't know if you do this on purpose or not, but you were several minutes into your presentation. You had on slacks, and I could not tell you had a prosthetic at all. Your gait was fine. I don't think half the audience knew what your story was. Is that on purpose?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I, sometimes groups need to sell seats and they need to advertise and they want to put my credentials up on the board so that they can sell tickets. But when you've got a captured audience and they're going to be there, don't tell them anything, because the whole half of it is me running around stage, pants, you can't tell, you have no clue what the story is. And I literally drag it out for a while before I actually give up what's going on. And then it's like, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way that this is a situation. So it's nice. This whole surprise thing is nice. And, but it's not imperative. It's been nice. I mean, I've done this thing from 4 people in a conference room to 20,000 at AT&T Stadium in Dallas to literally every kind of group in the world. Like I said, from NFL teams to little mom and pops. And it's just been a blessing, and it never gets old because it's always a new group, a new message, a new spin. I'm always going to tell the story for respect, but I've done everything from leadership talks to dealing with change, perseverance, everything you can imagine. And it's been awesome. It's been really cool.
Yeah. So you had that one night where you were ready to throw in the towel, and you heard, you'll soon know. How long did it take you until you recognized why this had happened? I mean, I hear a lot of people say, why do bad things happen to good people? And you're a 15-year-old kid minding your own business, living the life of your dreams. And I'm sure you asked that self, how long before you dealt with it? Or do you still struggle sometimes with it? I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly do not anymore. I did for a while. There were 2 questions that I went through in my life about this. Number one was obviously, why did this kind of happen? And my senior year in high school, I was actually chosen to do Youth Sunday and speak in front of the church and tell my story. Now, people have heard the story. They've read the newspapers. All of these things. They've watched me. I ended up playing 2 years of varsity basketball for my high school, my junior and senior year. So people knew of my story and things that were happening, and so they were intrigued to follow. The church was packed, but I got to share it from my perspective for the very first time. And as a kid, you don't think those things are that special. You just think, oh, this is just my life, and it's just not that big of a deal. And is this really going to mean anything to anyone? But as I walked out of the church that day, doctors and lawyers and people that I just admired for who they were as stature in the community were coming up to me saying, you have no idea how badly I needed to hear that. I've been struggling with this and this, and it meant so much to me to hear that story. And I think that was the first time that I started thinking, wow, this is a why for sure. I mean, this is something that could be, big. And so I literally spoke and told my story for 20 years and never took a paycheck. It wasn't a career, but I went the normal career that you're supposed to do. Went into college, went to get my master's, job after job. That's just what you do, because people that are on the speaking circuit are all ex-CEOs, or they're millionaires, or they're wrote books and all of these things. And like you said, or have something crazy. I just never I saw it as me giving back. And so I did it forever. And as I went through my careers, I finally decided, hey, I'm going to build a website. Let's see what happens with this thing. Very first year, 35 paying events. It was insane. It just went off. And when I got excited at work, it was when I had a talk coming up, not my job that I was supposed to be making money at. So I realized pretty quickly there was a calling there. And I'm just so thankful that I get to do this for a living. And it's been great for sure.
When was that, when you had 35, when you built that website? What year was that?
Oh, it's probably 10 or 11 years ago. Yeah.
So you've been telling your story. Have you gone back to groups a second, third time?
Yeah, some. I do. I certainly don't ever want to be a one-hit wonder of anything. And so I've done things with individual coaching. I've been, associated with the Zig Ziglar family. I was the lead motivational speaker on their former elite international team. And so I've done some coaching certifications through that. So I started that in COVID and started doing a lot of individual and small group coaching in businesses, and a lot of leadership, a lot of learning how to be a good manager, those type of things. And, but it's been a really nice ride in the fact that I've been able to do goal setting processes and classes and things like that. I do a lot of different individual group team building activities, things like that. But for the most part, it's been a hour and a half keynote situation for most conferences and events and things. And then I'll do breakout sessions and do other things. But yeah, I have groups. I have one IT group that hired me for 10 different events this year, which was just wonderful, to have those all knocked out. But And if you can get IT people to laugh and cry and have a good time, that's pretty special.
You've done something. You have done something for sure. So I remember like, I don't know why the Buffalo Bills keep popping in my head,
Yeah.
Clemson Tigers.
Sure.
You've done some pretty big things for, you said 20,000 people was that in Dallas? Are you a Dallas Cowboys fan?
I'm not. No. And honestly, growing up in North Carolina, we didn't have an NFL team. I mean, we had Atlanta, or you went up to,
DC.
Washington. That was it. And so my dad was always a college sports fan. So I'm actually very thankful. I'm not a diehard anybody, NFL wise or professional sports. So I just enjoy it all. So I don't have to worry about crying on Sunday afternoons anymore. I can just watch my fantasy team and see how they do. So
that's awesome. If you live or own property along the coast of South Carolina, you probably need insurance. We Insure Advocates is a locally owned independent agency with industry-leading service support. Our team of customer-centric agents can explain your coverage options and help you craft an insurance program that fits your needs and budget. Data-driven for better value, people-led for better service. That's the difference of we. For all of your property insurance needs, please find us at weinsureadvocates.com or call us at 843-491-6990. I think we need to talk a little bit about, like, the thing that's pressing on my heart here is, you're obviously a faithful guy. Right. I mean, your faith matters. We don't have to, elaborate unless you want to. But was that faith there before this incident, or did it develop? It certainly got stronger, but tell me about that.
It certainly was. I mean, I have grown up in the church. I mean, I was that kid that was at youth on Wednesdays and youth on Sundays and singing in the choir and all of these things. And whether or not I always wanted to as a kid, we went, and that's what we did. And so I've certainly always had a background. An interesting fact, 1 month before my accident, I actually, professed my faith and gave my life over to Christ 1 month before my accident happened. And so when it happened, it was a pissed off 15-year-old kid thinking, wait a minute, I just did exactly what I was supposed to do. Gave my life to you, and this is what I get out of return. And so there was a lot of arguing with God. There was a lot of thoughts and things that went through. But and then to your point earlier about my thought processes and things that I went through dealing with this and questions that I had. Why? Obviously, the second question happened later on in life. Thinking, you hear all your life that God has a plan for your life. And he has, everything, in your life and plans out all of these things. And so I started thinking as an adult, not that it was bothering me because I was very comfortable in my skin, but I remember asking some pastors at a retreat, was this God's plan from the day I came out? Is this what he had in my docket throughout this? Because it would have been a lot simpler to see his picture in a piece of toast and, than have to go through all that I went through. And I think that they were a little perplexed by the question because it's a legitimate question, even though I wasn't concerned about it. All their answers unanimously were God doesn't make bad things happen, but he can make some incredible things happen out of some really terrible situations if you'll let him. And I think that's what happened with me. Free will, life happens, things happen. But had I not had that background and that faith to lean on, I don't think this would have turned out the same. I really don't, because unless you have faith and I don't know what you lean on when bad things happen to you. Where do you go for strength?
Yeah,
I'm not strong enough on my own.
Yeah, but there is something to be said for your parents. Like you've made. You must have come from a pretty solid. It's a challenge to me raising kids to think about. Do I have the right words to say when something like that happens? Your mom and dad meant a lot to you during that, right?
And they didn't have the right words to say. Nobody does in those situations. to your point, I get calls all the time. Hey, my kid this just happened. This just happened. The kid in at East Carolina, baseball kid, Parker Bird, got run over by a boat. Almost exactly the same situation as mine. He was a freshman, great, incredible baseball player, and went through the same thing. I spent time with him and his family, and I told his parents, you don't have to have the right words. Just love and support and push and treat them like you've always treated them. Just because something like that happens, don't treat them any differently. Don't just give them everything they want. You still got to be their parent. It's not your job to raise a good kid. It's your job to raise a good adult. And you're not always going to be able to be their friend all the time. You have to, and that's hard because you want to be, especially with good kids. But then when they slack off and do this or that, it's your job, and that's honestly the things I remember most about my parents were when I did get my butt whooped and when I did get in trouble or privileges were taken away, because had that not happened to me, I wouldn't be the same person for sure. So it's hard being a parent, especially today. There's a lot going on with all of that, but just keep loving your kids and supporting them, and whatever they're talking about to you, act like it's the most important thing in the world. Even if it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life, act like it's the most important thing in the world, because when the important things do come, they'll be more apt to talk to you if you listen through all the dumb stuff,
Yeah.
So
that's the $1 million lesson right there for parents. I hope you guys are listening to that. I have to ask you though, like, two things. Your kids can't seriously ever complain about anything in sports. Like, they can't say, "Oh, Dad, my leg hurts. I'm sore." Because you just look at them like, dude.
No, well, I will tell you this. When I was a physical therapist, I used to have people say, "God, I bet you can get your patients to do anything in the world. You just show them your legs and say, 'Suck it up.'" And I said, I have never one time showed my patients my legs, ever. Because here's the deal. And I get that all the time. It's like, "Oh, I bet you just go and say, 'Hey, if I can do it, you can do it.'" Well, that sounds great on paper, but it will never come out of my mouth. And if that's what you gather, then that's fine, but it's not going to come out of my mouth. Because listen, I don't know what it's like to have certain things happen in my life or this or that, and things that you've gone through. I can't imagine going through some of the things that your trials were. You can't imagine getting your leg chopped off by a boat. I get that. But if it hurts, it's real. If it's a breakup, it hurts, it's real. If it's a kid who, has just small difficulties in school and it hurts, it's real. There is no level of category which actually you are allowed to complain about, in my opinion. Here's what I've always said, though. If you're not willing to fix it, you're not willing to do something about it, then you can't complain about it, though. Which is, a lot of people just like to hear themselves complain, but they don't have a fix or a plan to try to make things better. Then I tell them, you got to stop complaining then, So.
Yeah, I like that. That's maturity at the highest level. And I was tongue in cheek when I said that because I knew you wouldn't go that way. But the other thing I wanted, your dad, did your dad ever say in the hospital or after you figured this thing out in the beginning, did he ever say, "Put dirt on it"? Because you said rub some dirt on it and get moving, but this is amazing.
Well, in its own way, we had a lot of infection running through, so we were going to stay away from that. But even as hard as it was to start from scratch, and that's what I was doing. I lost so much strength in the hospital, lost 35 pounds. I mean, I didn't have much to lose to start with, but every drop of energy. I mean, I remember I had a catheter pulled out 3 or 4 weeks into this thing. That's a whole other story you want to read in the book. It's hilarious. But I didn't have the strength abdomen to go in the bathroom by myself. So they had to redo it. And that's a torturous situation. But just going to the gym and laying down and putting these little wrist weights and just trying to lift my arms up and just starting from scratch. And he was right there pushing. I had a no cry zone rule in my room. You're not allowed to cry or get upset in my room. And I know they did a lot, but they left. They were respectful, and I wanted positivity. But man, whatever it was I wanted to do, he was like, "Let's go, let's do it, let's push, let's push, let's push." And that's what he would have done had I been lifting weights ready for football season. It would have been the same situation. So just it's hard, man, when your kids go through trials, not to baby them and not to, coddle them. And, those things are okay to love them, but to just keep treating them like you always would means more than anything else, I believe.
Yeah. So one other question I want to ask you: how has the audience changed for you in 10 or 11 or 12 years speaking? I feel like the world is changing, but I see the same people all the time pretty much. And I don't watch the news, but you hear it through social media, whatever, but you're in front of audiences. Is it this pretty much the same issues people are dealing with that you see, or is it different?
I think it really depends. I mean, I have gone through the gamut of every type of, like I said, blue collar to white collar to everything in between. But it's not that different. People want to feel appreciated. People want to feel supported. People want to feel like they have a purpose. They want to enjoy what they're doing. They want to be challenged. They're not going to always admit that because that means extra work, but people like to feel purpose and they feel supported. And that's one thing that I will always tell the CEO or whoever's hiring me in. That said, they're going to walk out of there shaking your hand as many times as they're shaking mine, because I want them to feel like you've gone above and beyond for them. And you have brought in someone that not only can maybe help sell more or help the camaraderie around the office or whatever the situation is, but there might be somebody in that group that's struggling mentally with something in their personal life that they don't know how to get through. And when those things are happening, it's hard to come to work and sit at your desk and stay focused and be productive. I know when I was in real estate, if I wasn't completely clear-headed and my personal life wasn't, perfect, it had an effect. My mind was somewhere else. I didn't want to make all those phone calls. I didn't want to, go out and be in front of people. I just, those type of things happen. But you just have to be able to learn how to balance both of those things. Leave home at home, leave work at work when you leave, and to be able to balance that life. But as far as what people are struggling with, dealing with change is hard, and this change is inevitable. I don't care what business you're in, but it's hard. And just there's a lot of people that become leaders that have never had any experience in being a leader or any training in being a leader. And so they just go about their normal lives the best way they know how, and it's hard. So helping to give leadership tips and skills, how to listen, real estate, it's all about asking the right questions. It's all about just your viewpoint of what you do every single day, knowing that, hey, I'm just here to help you. I'm just here to serve you. I'm just here to help you to make whatever it is that you want to accomplish come about. And when you're the one talking, you're losing. When they're talking, you're winning. If you can get them to talk and you can shut your mouth long enough, but those alpha personalities that get into sales, it's really hard for them to shut their mouth because all they want to talk about is the product. That's all I want to talk about. That's not what they're interested in. They want to know you care about them.
Yeah.
They want to know that you care about them. And once they trust you, they'll do business with you for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're a good human being. You're an inspiration. If you're okay with it, I want to ask you 3 questions that my guests are used to hearing people talk about. Just see, they're kind of.
Don't ask me about the market. I heard that was one of your questions.
No, I don't. You know what? I don't care about the market in this conversation.
I'm not going to help you on that.
No, I know you are the market, Chad. I don't know if you know that. So what would you say if I asked you what's your superpower? What is it? Like, what do you bring to the table that is your thing?
I think getting people to listen, having the ability, a genuineness about my delivery, about what I'm talking about, where I'm coming from. I've heard a lot of speakers over my life who are arrogant and who, have all of these nuggets of things that they've just memorized over their lifetime reading books and just regurgitate them in front of everyone. And it sounds great. There's a nugget or two that mean a lot, but I'm going to be very vulnerable. I'm going to tell you things that most people wouldn't tell you about things I'm thinking and things that I've been through and my experiences. And so I think my superpower is getting people to listen to what I have to say. And that's not easy to do all the time. So to be able to go into a room and spend an hour and a half and nobody look at their phones, that's a superpower.
Yeah, yeah, that is.
In itself. So if I can keep them laughing and keep them crying and keep them on the edge of their seats, then I don't have to worry about the phones, which is, I think that's pretty super fine. Now, if I can just get my kids to put theirs down when I talk to them, that'd be a whole nother
Yeah,
game.
I probably should have scheduled to have your kids on here, let them talk about how dad's doing. I bet it'd be very similar to what you're saying. Tell me about your book. Have you only written the one book, Chad? Just your story?
I did. I
And
did.
what's it called? Tell us what it's
called
called.
Severed Dreams, and Reconstructing. But it's a great book. It's been a great resource for a lot of people. It is a book that I wrote for all ages, middle school, high school kids, adults, wherever you lie. There's no curse words. There's nothing in there but it's a story that's packed full of life, packed full of hilarious moments, tearful moments. I try to just let yourself inside my head, and I go through raising kids, and I go through just all my stages that I've gone through and how those have changed, and how I've been able to find my why. A lot of people, they search for their whole lifetime trying to discover, what is my why? What is my why? What am I doing, and why am I here? And that stinks, but it is life. But I'm lucky enough to have found that and to be able to write about those things. So it's been a great book. I know that you asked about books. One of the others, Zig Ziglar's "See You at the Top," is just one of my favorite books ever. It is. Now, I'll go ahead and preface it. I actually use this book when I do some coaching. I'll break down chapters and I have them read this book when I do coaching, but it's a little old-fashioned. It was written a long time ago. But the underlying meanings and just about life and sales and relationship building, that's what life is all about. That's what your personal life is about. Your professional life is building relationships. I don't care what you do for a living. You're selling something. You're selling yourself. You're selling concepts, ideas, products, something you are selling. And so to me, it works for everybody. It's all about just treating people the way you want to be treated, and giving people respect. And it's a great book for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you had me at Zig Ziglar, I mean, I don't know that, some of the classics are old fashioned, but I'm of the camp that there's really nothing new under the sun. We experience things differently, and we might say that you talk about speakers who just they read a bunch of stuff and they put it in their own words, but it's the same stuff. That's why that's what I love about you is, and I've heard other speakers too, not just put you on a pedestal, but that are talking about their experience. You can't take that away. Like what you've been through and how you've responded to that and how you've turned it into help for other people gets the stamp of approval every time. And no wonder it's a bestseller. Your story's a bestseller. I mean, I'm not putting you on a pedestal, but we all should learn from that, taking our experiences. And once we get our mind around what has just happened to us, figure out how we can make it for good. And that's what you've done. And I appreciate that.
It sounds super easy. It is super not easy at all. But
100%.
The right support system, the right mindset, to me, faith is a huge part of it for me. It doesn't have to be for everybody, but hopefully most people have a belief in something, besides themselves. Because that alone is not going to make it work. There are some people that feel like it will, but I just don't think it would for me. But yeah, I think that it's important to be genuine with people. It's important to come from the heart with people, and then they'll listen to you. They don't want somebody arrogant coming in there telling them, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. Then they will be on their phones and they'll say, well, what does this guy know? So right. I do spend, a third to a half of my presentation just letting them get to know who I am. And I think that's important.
Yeah, it's interesting to me psychologically too, that you probably weren't that guy before this happened, but you almost had you taken away. Like you can't, I mean, how could you be egotistical? If you were, you would be really, really an oddball, right? Because you had that almost all taken away. And now you realize that's when I was talking to Pam a little while ago, a good friend of mine who literally 6 months ago the doctor told her she had 3 months to live. She's been on my show twice since she got that diagnosis. It's all about other people. 100%, because she actually just gave herself and all of her friends through her a celebration of life while she's still alive. How cool is that? Yeah. And that's what you bring to the table. Tell me one last thing before we go.
Sure.
I could obviously talk to you forever, and I so appreciate you taking this amount of time with us. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get you to come back, if you would come back and speak, because we got an all new group of people now, and love to hear your story again.
You got turnover sometimes in real estate? It happens
a little bit.
We're probably growing a lot too, though.
We've done okay. I mean, we're very blessed where we are. We're doing fine. But tell me, awesome. What's part of your daily routine? The name of the show is Rise Up in Real Estate, and I'm just trying to find out what people do on a regular basis to help them rise above mediocrity. I mean, that's not a word that you have even lived close to based on what you've overcome. I mean, I know you struggle with things and stuff, but what you've overcome. But what is it that you do on a daily basis that helps you rise up? Something that maybe we can learn from.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing more important in my life than being grateful and having an attitude of gratefulness. It's the greatest of all attitudes. I think if you can be grateful and find every single day a reason to be grateful for some things in your life, whether you got to write those things down and read them to yourself because it's hard to remember sometimes when we just get stuck in a funk. But if we can lead our every single day with gratitude for the things that we do have, it's got to start you out on the right way. And I know there's a lot of things that aren't going our way, and there's a lot of things we struggle with. But when those things happen, we quickly forget about everything that is good and our health and the things that we have going on, and whether maybe it's not health, but we have loved ones and we have people that we care about us and support us. And we, yes, my story sometimes can make people feel, hey, well, I shouldn't complain after everything that he's been through. Like I said, it never comes out of my mouth, but sometimes those things are perceived when they hear the story. But I think just leading with gratitude, and I've just been a really big proponent of goal setting and making sure that you're looking at your goals every single day. It may take hours and hours to write good annual goals and goals that you work on every 6 months. But if you're not looking at them every single day, it might take 45 seconds to read the goals that you wrote. And I love my goal setting process because it's literally 6 questions you answer. And once you answer those 6 questions, you have a full, amazing goal. And so just reading those things every day to keep yourself focused and having a win list and a to-do list is massively important. My days are crazy with my kids and work and interviews and responding to events. If I don't have a list of things that I can check off during a day to know that I'm staying focused, I'm all over the place. I know I would have been given medicine for ADD had it been popular when I grew up. I know I would have. I know I still have some of it. I get squirreled so easily. But I think just making a win list, what's important now? I make a win list hopefully every day usually. And I love to scratch stuff off. I love to see progress. So it's like a grocery list. I don't want it on my phone. I want something I can scribble. So, but yeah, those are a couple of things. But gratitude, if you can just wake up in the morning and just list 10 things that you're super grateful for, it's hard to have a bad day when you start off thinking about those things versus everything else is going wrong.
Yeah. My favorite thing that you said, and I hope, where can we find you? What's the easiest way to find you if we want to connect with you?
Yeah, just chadporter.org. And that has cell phone. It might be the dumbest thing I ever did was put my cell phone number on my website, but cell phone number, email, social medias, all of those things are just right there at chadporter.org.
Awesome. My favorite thing that you said today in our time together, which I wasn't expecting, is you said, if it hurts, it's real.
Yeah.
And coming from a guy who's been where you, I just learned something about myself. Like I probably want to talk about what I've overcome to let people know what I've overcome. And here's a guy who really did, who would never, ever utter those words. I love that. I've learned something from you today, my friend, and I really appreciate you. I want to have you back down here again. I want you to come and speak to us again in the future, but keep doing your thing. We're going to connect with you. I will send you a note when the episode's going to be aired on a Monday coming up in the future. But thank you for your story and your time. I really appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Thanks for everything.
Well, hey, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Rise Up in Real Estate. If you liked hanging out with us today, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Rise Up in Real Estate. Also, follow us right now on your favorite podcast host to hear more episodes. We really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. And until next time, let's do each other a favor and all help each other rise up.